Wake up, wake up. Larry Krueger, Damon Bruce, back with you on a Monday. Was there a Niner game yesterday? No, but that means we don't have a loss to talk about. No, we're going to talk a lot of 49ers right now. Big day down in Niner land. DeAndre Campbell has officially been suspended. Let's go.
Monday, December 16th, we're brought to you by Sam's Chowder House, and everybody in the Bay could use a nice warm bowl of chowder. It is pouring for the first time since I've lived here, Larry. There was a tornado warning in San Francisco. We had wind measured at the airport this weekend that was like one of the biggest wind measurements in San Francisco city history. The weather has been a bit frightful as we get ready for the holiday season. No snow, obviously, but I mean, we got trees down. We got ants invading our kitchen by the millions. I mean, you wouldn't believe the parade of ants we have in our kitchen right now, because when the rain falls, they come inside. So it is no 49ers to worry about this past weekend. You're right, but we've been battling rain and ants in the meantime. I'd almost prefer to lose a football game. It's been a hell of a weekend with the raid cans and the ant traps and keeping the kids out of the dead ant pile. Like, come on, stay away from the ants, boys.
Well, you know what? The ants they're a social group. I mean, have you noticed they never hang singular? They never hang out by themselves.
No, dude, we got
always like it's a gang.
Highway level of ants.
It's a gang activity. And so there must be, what we must do is infiltrate them and figure out their mode of communication, because they somehow figure out a way to get, hey, you call 17,000 of your best friends and get on that piece of candy that's on the corner. We'll see you guys there. And then
Jillian's combating it in the cruelest of ways, where she sets the ant traps up where the ants go in. They think they're getting fed, and then they go back to their den, and what they've done is deliver poison to their den. So she's been encouraging the parade of ants to deliver the deathly poison blow to the ant nest. And
she is a murderer. She
really is.
She is absolutely crushing their unions.
She's taken out millions this past weekend. And look, let's start with the millions.
That's why your best friend's got to be the Clark's guy, who comes around, sprays the perimeter.
Agent Orange or Orange, whatever that was. It'll smell like oranges. They did a campaign.
Orange oil, I believe it was.
Orange oil. I think that was. We got to call Paulie Mack. I think he did a lot of their spots. Anyway, Larry, look. Since we're talking about things in the millions,
wait a second. It wouldn't be the Bay Area, Damon. Ants' lives matter, Damon.
Seriously, I'm so sorry. Look, we got millions, as I said, and yes. Brock Purdy's salary. You can already hear people screaming about it before we even hit go live on this live stream. People are in the chat saying, "Don't pay Purdy," this, that, the other thing. So let's just talk about what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Like, forget about anyone's feelings. Forget about any analysis. Forget about any amount of fan bitching and moaning or content creator related anxiety. None of that is going to matter in this upcoming Brock Purdy negotiation. What you will witness is nothing more than how the market works. That's what we're in. We're in a game where the market will dictate this outcome. And being a quarterback with Brock's track record at his age, with his Super Bowl appearance, and how his career started, means he's going to get paid. And you can scream and kick all you want. You could say, well, just cut him and start Tanner Mordecai, because it just doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Well, yeah, I guess that would be one way to go about it. But the other is to take the guy that has pleased the coach, the owner, his entire locker room, much of the fan base, and you retain him. And you'll have to do so at market rate, which means he's about to reset the market. And if it weren't Brock Purdy, it would just be the next guy up in this situation. Don't even think of him as Brock Purdy. just next eligible young quarterback up is going to move to the top of the how you get paid list. And Brock just happens to be his turn in line.
Yeah, I mean, we can argue about what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. But, it seems like every quarterback that becomes a free agent seems like resets the marketplace. Now, Brock Purdy's contract extension, the question is, would you pay him $60 to $65 million? If not, then, because that is the going rate, would you trade him? And then who's the Niners quarterback? I mean, that's really the three questions. It's like, would you pay Brock the going rate? And if not, you're probably going to have to trade him. And then if you trade him, who's your quarterback? So how did we get here? Tom Pelissaro of the NFL Network, Damon, reported Saturday on the Rich Eisen show that Purdy's going to seek a contract at the top of the market, which, as we all know, Dak Prescott is at the top of the market at $60 million. So we're talking about a contract that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 to $65 million per year. Okay, so let's get into if he's worth it or not. I mean, Purdy, Damon, has 13 games of a 120 passer rating. That's the most of any player in his first 3 seasons in the NFL. He's efficient. He's a leader. He's won 4 playoff games, including an NFC title game. He's eligible for a contract extension starting at the end of the regular season. Next year, technically, Damon, is his contract year. He's struggled at times this year. The question is why, right? We can get into that. Ian Rappaport also said Posey is still the guy as far as the Niners are concerned, and that the Niners plan to lock him up to a long-term extension this upcoming offseason. Bill Barnwell of ESPN, who's probably the smartest guy in the room, said Purdy's contract likely is going to be 5 years, 100 or 325 million, which is 65 million a year, which a lot of people are like, oh my God, no.
Hey, look, I understand anyone who gets sticker shock. I would have gotten sticker shock if that number had been attached to Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like that's
especially this year
monster number.
Yeah, especially right now. I guess my first question would be, and I asked myself this last night, how many quarterbacks in the NFL right now would I rather have than Brock Purdy? Because to me, that seems kind of like the ultimate barometer for, where does he actually rank? And what I have, and this is my list, everybody's got a different list. I have Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray, and Jaden Daniels.
Would you rather have Kyler Murray because of production or because of price?
Just the overall package of speed, arm strength, elusiveness, and price. But yeah, speed and arm strength and elusiveness.
So you got 7. You just listed
7. So I have Purdy as like the 8th quarterback, but I'm sure there are people like I have Purdy ahead of a group that some people would have him behind. Like, for example, I have him ahead of CJ Stroud. I have him ahead of Russell Wilson, who's going to the Hall of Fame. I have him ahead of Baker Mayfield, who's like hot right now. I have him over Sam Darnold, who's hot right now. I have him over Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts, 2 good quarterbacks on teams that are better than the Niners.
Well, Jordan Love last night, though, might have climbed on top. He had a hell of a game.
I have Purdy over Goff, over Deshaun Watson, over Cousins, over Rodgers, over Herbert, over Lawrence. I get it. There's a lot of you out there that would not put Purdy over many of the guys that I would. So I have Purdy 8th, but I would say most people, if I had to guess, would have Purdy probably between 12 and 15. There's probably, because most people would take Stroud over him. Most people would take Jordan Love over him. And there's individuals that would take every single one of those other guys on the list over him. But I would say I have him 8th. I would say he's probably 10 to 12 on most people's list. It could be 12 to 15, but I think it's more 10 to 12. Is he a top tier quarterback? No, he is not. Is he a second tier quarterback? Yes, he is. So I do know this. The Falcons gave Kirk Cousins $100 million over 2 years. So they give him $50 million a year. Chase Sr. the other day put out a tweet saying that he'd offer Brock a 4-year deal worth 120 million fully guaranteed, which would be 30 million a year
Okay, I said that
guaranteed
3 weeks ago, but talk about that Chase Senior tweet from yesterday. I said that months ago. The
Well, I'm just
guaranteed dollar is where I think the Niners should approach this from.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is you're both high because there's no chance in hell that Kyle Strongton, the owner of, the agent of Brock Purdy, he probably could be the owner, the agent of Brock Purdy is not going for that. He's not going for $120 million guaranteed. And he's not going for an AAV of $30 million. He's just not. He wants an $30 million. Why should he take $30 million when Tua Tagovailoa got 53? Why should he take $30 million when Jalen Hurts just got 55?
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Brock should be in the 50 to. I don't think he should be 60 to 65. I think that's ridiculous. But I do think he should be. He deserves to be in the 50 to 55. That's where he deserves to be. And I know it's bloated. I'm not saying he's worth that. I'm just saying if you look at the marketplace, he's a very good quarterback, but he's not elite. I think we would all agree. He's not a Hall of Famer. And I don't know that he needs to set the market, but that has been the way this has gone. Dak Prescott set the market. Is he the best quarterback in football? Fuck no. But he set the market. So Brock's agent is going to try to do exactly the same, and that's 60 to 65 million. I don't think he's worth that, but I'm also not one of these people that's like, oh, offer him 20 million and then that's it. Tell him to, tuck tail. It's like that's not negotiating. That's just like I want my arbitrary price because I want it, and you're not getting that. That's not. I guess work.
If the Niners really wanted to play hardball, they could just turn around and say, well, if you want what the market bears, there is no better way in the world to find the market number than to just franchise tag your guy, because that takes the 5 highest salaries in the league and you get the average of the 5 highest salaries. I mean, they should really think about maybe franchise tagging Brock Purdy. That is an option for them. They don't have to go out and extend him, but they want to because, again, they like the player. They like the leadership. The locker room likes him. The coach likes him. The owner likes him. He is a popular guy. He works hard. All the intangible stuff that you can't measure. How do you do at the podium? How do you do with the press?
Good too.
He's great at all of that. He really is. He is a Boy Scout. He is never going to be pulled over for anything worse than a speeding ticket in his life. Promise you. Like, that's a guy you do want to bet on. And there's a reason that Brock is worth the gamble more than it would be worth the gamble than to just restart the entire process with a brand new quarterback who you don't know much about. He's got a lot of attributes that I like. I think he's got a lot of attributes that are more important than the physical gifts everyone insists are the more important attributes, which is, by the way, why that interception at the end of that Rams game was so jolting and disturbing, because for Brock to be a $60 million a year quarterback, part of his equation is I never make that wrong throw in the wrong scenario. And that is to me, when we circle all of the what have been Brock's biggest mistakes of his career to this point, I got that in the top 3 worst throws of the young man's career. And unfortunately, it's just the last impression we saw of him. Huh?
What's number 1?
What is number 1?
That would be number 1 for me.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, your season was on the line, and you floated a pass down the field to a guy who can't run, and you overthrew him by a ton, and you took a chance when there was a check down totally right there available, and you cost your team the game. I would say that was considering the season ended on
that throw. He doesn't make that throw 99% of the time. So that's why it was so disturbing that he did it, because for Brock to really be worth it, he has to be the guy who never makes that decision. So outside of that, here's the rest of the resume. Guys, put it together. Like, just forget about the name Brock Purdy or San Francisco 49ers. When the following goes to marketplace, the following gets paid. a 24-year-old who got MVP votes a year ago when he was in a Super Bowl, in 38 games has over 8,000 yards passing, 400 rushing yards, 59 touchdowns in the air, 7 more on the ground against 24 interceptions, a career 104.9 passer rating. The team loves him. He's humble. He's kind. He's a student of the game. He's prepared. He's got a winning record behind his starts, and everyone seems to really like him. Now, no matter who that guy is, that guy's getting paid. That guy in this instance just happens to be Brock Purdy. And, I know that the Niners or fans are going to want to attack the Niners for what they're about to pay him. Don't even really blame the Niners. Blame the league. The league has allowed the quarterback price to grow like a skyscraper, while so many other positions have, like neighborhood zoning, and you can't build that big. There is a billionaire class of quarterbacks in a multimillionaire class of other football players. And it's a little nuts. It's a little unfair. It's a lot unbalanced. And I think the league will be addressing that in the way that the cap is going to be growing. So I don't think the scariest number you could attach to Brock Purdy's name will have this punitive damage all over the roster like some people fear it will, because it will all grow. The NFL is not going to, be so stubborn about quarterbacks getting paid so much that the teams around them are now awful. Like, the league understands.
The cap goes up and all these deals look better over time.
Right.
But the question, I guess, would be this. For the people that are yelling and screaming, you can't pay him, did you feel that way last year? Did you feel that way when they won the NFC Championship game and you were going to the Super Bowl? Did you feel like, man, a year from now, we got to cut this guy? A year from now, we got to part ways with this guy? Probably not, right? So what has changed? What, if anything, has changed? And the people that would be yelling, don't pay him, is, he's totally mid. He's totally mid. Is he? Or are the 49ers totally mid? I mean, Purdy has struggled this year. There's no question about it.
It's been an off year for him in many ways. It's been a year of, I think, evolution and testing new ideas with wrong-fitting players.
But again, is he struggling, or are they struggling?
Yeah, right.
Is he struggling, or are they struggling? I bring this up because his wide receivers are completely ordinary this year and without any speed. Deebo Samuel struggles to get open against man coverage. Brandon Ayuk regressed significantly before he tore up his knee and is now almost assuredly going to emerge whenever he plays again as a diminished player, whenever he plays, which is probably not until late next season.
Right. I don't think he's back before Thanksgiving next year.
Right. So you don't have him. You don't have Debo looks bad. Ricky Pearsall has 2 receptions in 107 routes run over the last 5 games.
When you
for
say
21
it like that,
yards.
Larry, when you say it like that, it's bad. Jesus, that's bad. God.
Well, I mean, it's like, hey, you did 107 shows, Damon. You had 2 good ones. Are you good?
No.
You made 107 dinners. 2 of them were good. Are you a good cook? No. You're an opera singer. You missed your high note 107 times and you made it twice, or 105 times and you made it twice. Are you a good opera singer? No. So Ricky Pearsall's not good. Brandon Ayuk's not good right now. Deebo Samuel's not good. His O-line is not good. So I kind of would look at this and say, like, for example, one of the questions I'm going to ask Kyle Shanahan at some point, what has happened to your guys' ability to run the ball? Since the bye week, you can't run the ball. 3-3 against the Rams, 3-9 against the Bears, 2-8 against the Pack, 3-4 against the Bucks. Why can't you run? The other thing was, like, Brock Purdy's deep ball really hung. It really hung up there. I mean, not just the one that got picked, but he was 1 for 8 on deep balls against the Rams with a pick. He only completed 45%. But I would push back and say His offensive line allowed 19 pressures. Okay, so the offensive line is not very good. Debo has 116 total yards over his last 5 games. That's 23 a game. And last year, to me, this is what really is the stat that you gotta grab onto. Last year, Ayuk, Debo, and Christian McCaffrey scored 40 touchdowns. This year, that trio has scored 2. And all 3 of them's future is very much in question. Debo's an old 28. Ayuk's 26, but is coming off of massive knee surgery. And McCaffrey's 28, but he's got Achilles tendonitis in both ankles, and now he's coming off a PCL surgery. So the Niners offense is at a crisis right now. I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, in a must-win game, the Niners offense, Damon, 0 touchdowns at home against a bottom third defense. So, I mean, the offensive line is not opening run lanes for Garendo. 10 of his 16 runs went for 3 yards or less. Debo is not Debo. Shanahan's lost his way as a play caller on a rainy night, Damon, against a bad Rams run D. He had 31 passes and 19 runs in a game that was, basically a tie game the entire game. They never crossed the Rams' 25-yard line at any point. So I don't know. I look at this and we can get all mad about Brock, but in reality, that right there paints the ultimate picture. Your trio of weapons last year were on top of the NFL. They scored 40 touchdowns. This year they evaporated, and next year you may not have any of them.
And
so
that
is the problem.
Larry, their fall offs have been much more precipitous than Brock's fall off. Brock's numbers are down because of that, or you can say their numbers are down because of Brock. I think it's the other way around.
It's probably Brock's numbers are down. Well, especially Brock's numbers are down because of CMC and Ayuk. Because those guys they didn't do anything. They just got hurt.
It all goes into the gumbo. All of it. It all matters. It really does. The question is, do you like the player enough for further investment? Further investment is going to come with a Beverly Hills price tag. But anyone who plays in the neighborhood of Brock Purdy is going to be turning around and asking for Beverly Hills price tags at one. There's no way to avoid it. When you get a quarterback that you like, you're going to have to pay him. And this is just, again, if this is too much for you to handle, you got to stop watching football, because this is
or you just got to go in a different direction. I mean, you don't have to pay him. I mean, we set that up in the first sentence. You don't have to pay him. You can go get one of these reclamation projects. You can go draft somebody, and you can trade Brock Purdy. And the one thing I can absolutely sit here and guarantee everybody listening and watching on YouTube, there's a market. Like if they want to trade Brock Purdy, there's going to be teams on the other end saying, I'll take him.
Of course there would be. Now, what they would be,
for a good price.
Would Brock be willing? I mean, who's the thing? Who's the team out there that's going to turn around and give the $60 million a year to Brock? Who is that team? Who would be that team other than the Niners?
The Raiders, the New York Giants, just a couple that come to mind.
I think the Raiders are looking at their Jimmy Garoppolo experience, and that enough might be, to scare them away from Brock.
Or just like, hey, how about this? Anybody who drafted a top quarterback and then felt burned. So, like, it could be Jacksonville. It could be anybody. It could be Pittsburgh if Russell walks away. I went and looked at the market just to take a look, Damon, so we would know this morning. Mm-hmm. This is the available free agents that I can tell at quarterback this year. Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Drew Lock.
It's amazing that Andy Dalton is still on this list. The Red Rocket lives. Good Lord.
I mean, for the 49ers, Andy Dalton might not be bad as a backup to Brock if you're going to go with Brock. But anyway, Drew Lock, Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, Mac Jones, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, and Jacoby Brissett. all those quarterbacks are set to be a free agent. I guess theoretically, Damon, you could, if you were dead set, we are not paying Brock Purdy, whatever. We don't feel like Brock, or, we don't believe in Brock. We don't believe he's regressed and he's a pumpkin. He's turned into a pumpkin, whatever. You could go for Sam Darnold or Mac Jones or Zach Wilson or any one of these guys.
I mean, dude,
and trade Brock Purdy. You could do it.
If we're going crazy and dropping acid on the great quarterback experiment, let's go. Give me Jameis. Give me fucking Jameis.
He got pulled yesterday for DTR.
That's all right. But give me Jameis, and let's just go nuts. Let's go fucking nuts. Give me a guy who might throw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns and lose that game all at once. You want to go bonkers? You want to go see what quarterback insanity really looks like?
Is there anybody on that list that's an upgrade from Brock Purdy?
I don't think so.
The only one that I would consider even possibly being an upgrade would be Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson is a Hall of Famer. Russell Wilson has bounced back this year in Pittsburgh.
Russell's not going anywhere.
I don't think so either, but I think he's a free agent.
Didn't Pittsburgh redo his deal?
He's listed in Spot Track as a free agent. I could be wrong.
Maybe he is.
I mean, and believe me, if I'm wrong about any of these guys, don't hold me to it. It was late last night. I went through my phone and I was just looking at free agents. If he signed an extension, I didn't double check everyone.
Blame the internet, Larry. Blame the internet.
Well, no, but I mean, the rest of those guys. I mean, I've heard people argue sign Darnold for less and trade Purdy. Would you do that? I don't think I would. I like Zach Wilson's future, but I wouldn't gamble the whole franchise on Zach Wilson finding himself and trading Brock Purdy. I think Mac Jones did some good things yesterday for Jacksonville. I watched a little bit of that game. I wouldn't sign Mac Jones and trade Brock Purdy, but you know what I mean? That's one option. The other option is the draft. And here's the draft. These are the 10 quarterbacks in the draft. Jalen Milroe, Alabama. Quinn Ewers from Texas, who's got a real good arm, 5-star guy. He might be interesting.
Quinn Ewers might be either staying in college Texas for like $12 million a year or transferring to some other school. Like let's get Quinn Ewers to Indiana if we need him next year. Come on, let's bring him in.
Wait, who was it that was trying to get Ewers? Was it Oklahoma? Somebody, I forget who it was, but Oregon.
I'll tell you right now, these transfer portals are fucking ridiculous, dude.
Well, it's like, do I take a pay cut to go to the NFL? But Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Drew Aller from Penn State, Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Carson Beck from Georgia, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, Tyler Van Dyke, Wisconsin, formerly of Miami, Haynes King, Georgia Tech, formerly of A&M, and then the guys at the top, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward.
Right,
we're going to go 1-2, 2-1.
You're not looking at either of them.
Yeah, I mean, if the Niners wanted to, I bet you they could. I mean, let's just say the Niners felt that Cam Ward was the next Lamar. Okay, let's just say the Niners scouts, they had a meeting. Cam Ward's the next Lamar. Okay, he's the next Lamar. Do you guys really believe that? Yes, we absolutely believe that.
Cam Ward or bust. That's
right.
Put it
well,
in.
Then you probably could trade Brock Purdy and your whatever pick, 10th pick, 13th pick, whatever they're going to wind up with, and probably get up a team like the Giants or the Raiders, because of the uncertainty of rookie quarterbacks, might take Brock Purdy in the 10th pick for the second pick for Cam Ward.
The uncertainty of rookie quarterbacks is why Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers would never do it, right? I mean,
you'd have to be totally set. Like this guy, Jackie D says, or is Cam Ward the next Trey Lance? Yeah, I mean, I think Cam Ward is really good. But there's questions about Cam Ward, and a lot of the questions about Cam Ward are the exact questions that we have about Brock Purdy.
Well, and
is he big enough? Does he have enough stature? Does he have enough arm strength? Does he throw enough? Does he throw a good enough deep ball? Can teams adjust to him? Are there ways to defend him?
Right.
But the other people say, you know what? He's
cool. He does the zombie dance, so he's cool though. Look, no, here's the look.
He's a great player. I think I love Cam Ward, but once again, Damon, there's risks with all these guys. It's like, no, there's no such thing as the perfect prospect. Otherwise, Trevor Lawrence would be the best quarterback in football, and he's not. he may not even hold his job for too much longer. So those are your options. Those are your free agent options. And you don't have to sign Purdy. You can go sign. You could probably get Sam Darnold to come back here. Kyle loves Sam Darnold, and you could probably trade Brock Purdy.
You want to get nuts, Larry? Let's get nuts. Here we go.
I'm just saying, it may not be nuts. It may be nuts. I mean, I think it's nuts. I don't know how you feel about it. I think they ought to stay with Brock Purdy, pay Brock Purdy. Philly's paid Hurts, and they have a good team. Miami's paid Tua. They've got a pretty good team. I think you pay Brock Purdy, and you give yourself some outs of the contract, and I would rather it be like a 3-year deal as opposed to a 5, 6, 7-year deal, something like that. But I think you pay Brock Purdy and then go build up the team around him. That's what I would do.
The problem is that if you're going to make any extreme decision about moving on from Brock Purdy, you will have to do do we really have his replacement experiment after he's gone? Which brings me to what will be the main topic of like my 11 a.m. show this morning on YouTube, Larry, and that is the 49ers are very much now in the end game of this season. You know, they have lost the battle, but they continue to fight the war. The war will be there for them week 1 next season, whether they win the Super Bowl, miss the playoffs, the war continues week 1 next year. And who is going to be your quarterback then? Well, you got 3 weeks left here, and we know it's not going to be Brandon Allen. We know it's not going to be Josh Dobbs. Why not promote Tanner Mordecai and get Tanner Mordecai some quarters of football over the next few weeks? And if you're really that convinced, 49ers, and they have established publicly that they are, that Brock is going to be extended, well, then there's no reason to further expose him to what could be a catastrophic injury that would throw next year off. So, you know, there's a reason to not play Brock in games that don't matter anyway. To see what you maybe got in Tanner Mordecai, promote him from the practice squad. He's been in the system now for a full year. Larry, you know, you're all kinds of high on the Mordecai prospect.
I am.
See what he can do. And maybe you do have a level of football from a guy like Tanner Mordecai that really brings you back to the table to talk about, like, all right, so Tanner Mordecai still on his rookie deal, and we can surround him with talent everywhere because we're not paying him $60 million a year. And is there more there than Brock at 60? And what else can we put around? Find out, right? Isn't this the right time to find out these final games of the year?
Why not? Oh, I mean, it's not just about Tanner. I think it's a great topic for a second here. Why don't we hit that for a second? Because if the Niners are out, and they are out. I mean, they're not out because Seattle actually lost. Are they out?
No.
I mean, they're out. We know they're
the 49ers
I think
officially live
they're not mathematically out.
Eliminated. But there's like 0.01%. I mean, they're done. Okay, they're done.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what's frustrating about Thursday night is that the Rams or is that the Seahawks lost to Green Bay. And so now the 49ers would have been in a much better spot if they had won because of that Seahawks loss to Green Bay, but that's all for naught. As far as down the stretch in these final 3 games, what do you want to see? You know, you got Miami, you got Detroit, you got Arizona. What do you want to see? Or who do you want to see? I got my list
right here. You want me to do my 11 o'clock?
I want to see. This is who I want to see. I want to see Cowing. I want to see Pearsall. I'd like to see some Spencer Burford. I'd like to see some Drake Nugent. Okay, those would be my guys on offense. I wouldn't mind seeing a little Mason Pline. I would definitely like to see Tanner Mordecai. And I wouldn't mind seeing some carries for Izzy Abanaconda. So that's what I want to see offensively. Defensively, you're playing, I think, all the young guys. I think all the young guys already are playing. I guess I would say with Flanagan Fowles being dinged up, with Winters being dinged up, and with Campbell being cut or suspended, I want to see Jalen Graham, and I would love to see them sign a young linebacker that can be on the roster next year off of somebody's practice squad or off the street. I would go for Kalen DeLoach, the former Florida State linebacker, but there's a bunch out there. And then other than that, that's really it. The young guys are already playing in the secondary. I'm looking at the practice squad. I don't see anybody on the practice squad outside of Mordecai.
Here we go.
And Nugent. Mordecai, Nugent, Jalen Graham, and Pline.
Here we go.
The young guys for me.
Here's guys off the practice squad, all right? Got running back Keyshawn Vaughn, center Drake Nugent, defensive end Alex Barrett, tight end Mason Pline. Show me one of them. In the next 3 weeks, show me one of them. Give me a little run, a larger than small sample size on just one of those guys. See whether or not they're worth further investment. There's no reason to have questions about all four. Show me one of them, two of them. Just show me something. Show me what Ricky Pearsall can do from scrimmage. Every single coach from flag football to the Super Bowl has one play that'll pop this guy open. Run one play for Ricky Pearsall. Get him open. Figure out a way to figure out if Ricky Pearsall is an NFL player, because we don't really know right now. Same thing for Jacob Cowing. Get him on the field. Don't find out whether or not he is Danny Gray 2.0 or his name is actually Jacob Cowing. Because right now he's Danny Gray 2.0. Let's be honest. So let's see what he is. Throw him the fucking football and get him involved in a game plan, whether you want to or not. There's no reason not to. Nick Zakel. I don't care how much Brock Purdy likes him and their boys and their roommates. Can he play? Yes or not? If the answer is yes, keep him. If the answer is no, move on. Israel Abinaconda, like you said, what is he? What? Play him. Why not? See if you got a guy that you might want to bring into next year. Figure it out, because you don't know who he is. And I would basically turn around and say, George Kittle, you're the man. You're going to the Canton, Ohio one day. You are so special, and you are our Len Eschmont Award winner this year. You're the only dude on this team who knows where the end zone is. God bless you, George. So here's what we want to do. We want to ask you, what's more important? Resting, shutting you down right now, or getting about 140 more receiving yards to get yourself 1,000 yards, and then we're shutting you down whether you like it or not? Do you want to go to 1,000? If the answer is yes, we'll let you try to do that over the next couple weeks. If the answer is you don't care, you got that Zenny money, so fuck it, shut me down. Shut him down. Shut him down. George Kittle does nothing left to prove in this league, and I would say the same thing for Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, who should be on pitch counts the rest of this season. Do not jeopardize week 1 next year in some sad sacked attempt to hold on to whatever mathematical bullshit you think you still got remaining for you in your final 3 weeks. The season is over. Start playing for next year right now. That's what I would recommend over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. But I mean, once again, it's, when you really back away and look at what we're talking about, you're only really talking about a handful of players. We're talking about a handful of players that you need to find out about.
Yeah.
So find out about them. But that's pretty much it.
Dre, I would almost say, Dre, you were so awesome the other night. It's a shame that the team didn't go out and win that one for you. Welcome back. We've almost seen all we need to see, dude. We're still in business together. And the last thing we want to do is exacerbate, an injury you're fresh coming back from. So I wouldn't have Dre Greenlaw play more than 20, 30 snaps in any football game the rest of this way. And I would even shut him down week 18 at Arizona. Like, just come on. Like, dude, we know how you're just chomping at the bit to play again. Go out there, hit somebody, feel like yourself again. But let's not push this at all. There is no reason to run your engine hot based on your injury. So come on, just be smart with him too.
Well, I don't know that he's going to go for that unless there's some kind of contract, because he's right now he's a free agent. He's trying to show everybody what he's got.
I would almost tell him.
I would say to him,
George,
I'll sit you down, but I'm going to sit you down, but I'm going to sign you.
Right.
So let's get that done right now, and we'll start the rebuild there, because there's a bunch of guys who are leaving, but he's not one of them. And then
I'm ready to work on an extension for Dre Greenlaw and George Kittle today.
Yeah, no question. Those guys, that's your, I mean, you got to have Greenlaw back. I don't care. Even if it doesn't make sense, you got to have him back.
You got to have Kittle back too.
You get both those guys. I mean, that's your culture player offensively. That's your culture player defensively. That's your tone setters. The one thing that you need to do in the offseason is bring a lot of new faces into the building. You need new players, but you're going to need your existing leaders to get them up to speed and show them the Niners standard right away from, out of the chute. So I would shut down Greenlaw, but I would sign him as well in the process. And I would definitely try to shut down Kittle and sign him as well. And just tell him, hey, look, we're going to take care of you. But let us look at some young guys.
Their shutdowns would be welcome bits of news. Deliver it with new contracts and extensions and money, and let them know that, we're shutting you down because we love you. No other reason. We need you next year. So the question is, what do you do with a couple key guys? Like, what do you do with Purdy? What do you do with Debo? What do you do? What do you do at wide receiver? What do you do on the defensive line? I mean, the Debo one is really interesting because he's 28, but he's an old 28. He's clearly lost a step. He appears to be in decline. He's averaging 2.5 yards per carry. He's only scored 2 touchdowns all year. He's entering a contract year. Do you trade him? What's his market value? Do you release him? The dead cap hit would be painful, and it would be rough. It would be a tough thing to endure. Do you extend him? I mean, that's probably the only thing to do if you're going to try to make his dollars palatable. He's got a roster. The Niners have a roster with 6 or 7 different players who are going to deserve at least $15 million this year. So I mean, they're super overloaded with players. He's on the books for $17 million for 2025. Ravens wanted to trade for him at the draft. I don't know if they still do. He's Kyle's favorite player. I would imagine Kyle's going to try to find a way to keep him, but I don't think that's probably the right decision if he's he's going to be faster and in better shape at 29 than he was at 28. I mean, somebody has to explain that one to me. Look, we all know that the team likes Debo. Kyle specifically likes Debo, probably a little more than he actually should. I also think that both Debo Samuel and Brandon Pajemski are running a sprint to see who could destroy their own trade value in the last month more than the other guy. And I don't know who's winning that race. It might be Debo, in which case, Debo back is a 3rd or 4th wide receiver, more of a gadget guy. I don't mind that. I don't like the price point, but I don't think
$17 million gadgets.
Let's say, Larry, but here's the deal. Let's say you put him on the market, right? You think you're getting a 6th rounder for Debo? Debo is probably, even in a dilapidated state, worth more to the Niners than mystery 6th rounder who Kyle Shanahan will fucking hate because he's a rookie in the 6th round no matter what.
I don't know about that. Here's why. Because when Kyle just basically gave up the Ram game to force feed Debo.
That's how much he loved him.
That was okay because they didn't have a whole lot of other players, I guess. But it probably wasn't okay because Kittle should have got the ball more and JJ should have got the ball more. And Pearsall has yet to establish himself, and Cowing didn't get on the field at all. And it's like, so I don't know. I mean, do you really want to give Kyle the ability to, after next year, you bring in some new weapons, theoretically, that are more explosive? You want Kyle to ignore those guys to throw it to Debo at 29 when he's packing 12 extra pounds? I mean, I don't know. I don't need to see him dealt, but I'm just saying it. Right. I don't see him getting better.
Well, so again, not to use the Warriors as a reference jumping off point again, but I really felt like someone needed to take Klay Thompson away from Steve Kerr because Steve doesn't have the gall to just say, all right, enough is enough. He just does. He's too loyal to the player. And if you're telling me that that's the situation that Shanahan and that, because I just think that there's more of a desperation to win and prove yourself and produce in the NFL than there is anywhere. So the games are limited. You don't have as many bites as the apple as you do in the NBA. So I just think that football reality dictates what's going out on in the field more than your desires of a coach to get a player going. I don't know though, but I just think that it's going to be hard to move on from Debo. So he's probably back. but he cannot be your X or Y without massive improvement. So hey, here's the thing, bench Debo the rest of the way. Get Cowling out there. Get Pearsall out there. Find out whether or not Trent Taylor is a worthy investment. Again, you want to get nuts? Let's get fucking nuts, Larry. Let's bench Debo the rest of the year. Call up Tariq Owens. See if Terrell's kid can play. Why not?
No.
He's here. Why not? Why not? Bring up Trent Taylor. Is there any reason to further invest in him next year or not? Move on.
There's nothing there. I mean, maybe you should get rid of some of your role players and take a look at some younger players if they're out there. But there's no reason to play Trent Taylor. I mean, Trent Taylor's
right.
Well, we know what.
And go with Tariq Owens, the ultimate. You got no idea what you got here. You don't think much of him. He hasn't made an NFL roster yet beyond a practice squad.
They may, but I mean, I don't think Tariq
figure out whether or not your kid can swim. You just got to throw him in the pool, right? And I think that the Niners need to do that. Like, is Mason Pline perfect? You don't got time to wait for perfect.
Well, right. At this point, you're just looking for glimpses. Just get a glimpse here, a glimpse there. Somebody shows you something. Find out what you have. Find out what you have in Tanner Mordecai. I mean, here's the bottom line. Tanner Mordecai is not big, but he's the same size as Brock. But he also runs 4.4. He's got a pretty good arm. I mean, there aren't too many quarterbacks that can run 4.4 or have pretty good arm. He's a pretty competitive kid.
Played at Wisconsin, which means he's got to be a little bit more weather prepared to play than Purdy's been, even though Purdy came from freaking Ames where they have weather too. But I mean,
play this guy. Find out what he is. I mean, man, I'll just say this. I mean, I don't think you can afford, no matter who you have at quarterback, whether you pay Brock or decide to go in a different direction, you can't afford what they had this year. You can't afford to spend $7 million on a couple backup quarterbacks. You can't. What the Brock model, if you're going to go forward with him, is got to be Brock and kids. It's got to be Brock and young quarterbacks. And it makes sense for a lot of reasons. It makes sense because you don't know if Brock's the guy long term, so you have to keep looking for a quarterback. You don't guess who's not going to be a star? The quarterback you don't draft. I mean, if you don't take a shot on anybody, then there's no chance. How did you get to Brock Purdy? You took a chance on a 7th round quarterback. How do you get a sleeper quarterback? You keep taking chances on guys in the draft because you know the way quarterback is. It's like everybody knows who's great when they see it in the NFL, but nobody seems to know who's great coming into the draft. And guys go first in the draft that can't play. Guys go last in the draft that can play. So there's obviously a lot of guesswork that goes into it.
Absolutely.
All I would say is keep going, keep guessing. I like Tyler Van Dyke. I like Haynes King. I like Riley Leonard. Do I love him? No. I love Cam Ward, but I can't invest every year in Cam Ward. He's going to be a top 5 pick. But guess what? I can invest every single year in the Tyler Van Dykes of the world. Every single year I can invest in Riley Leonard and Haynes King. Day 3 quarterbacks who might have been 5-star recruits. Like once upon a time, it just didn't work out at A&M or didn't work out because they transferred, especially these days where guys get 1 year. And then if they lose out on the competition, because everybody goes to the same school, then all of a sudden they transfer. And so there's going to be careers of quarterbacks who are like, yeah, he didn't play. He went here. He lost to this guy. Then he transferred here, but so did some other guy. Then he lost out there. Then he played 1 semester and he looked really good, but you know what I mean? It's going to be stuff like that because guys are moving around,
Right. Or you're going to get one guy who, again, like look at Curtis Rourke at Indiana this year. He's getting drafted, Larry. I think he's a day 3 pick for sure. Here's a guy who's at Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio, playing well, MAC player of the year, transfers to Indiana, gets more exposure, has one of the best seasons any quarterback has had. And the guy basically walked out of the fucking cornfield into the Big Ten and had himself a hell of a year. He's going to get drafted. That guy is going to be appearing now more often, than you used to see a guy like that.
Totally. There's all kinds of these guys. And And, just because you didn't get it done in college or you didn't get an opportunity doesn't mean you couldn't get it done in the pros. My point is just that if you're going to go with Brock, and my plan would be to go with Brock and figure out a contract, you can no longer afford, especially if you're paying Brock big money. You can't afford Brandon Allen. You can't afford $5 million on a backup, and you can't afford a $2 or $3 million third string guy.
Right.
You probably need to have backups, like true backups, like rookies.
When you said Andy Dalton, I mean, like Andy Dalton,
like Andy Dalton, yeah,
for $900,000 a year, because you're at the end, and it's like, hey, Andy, you're either the third string Niner quarterback or you're out of the league. You want to take the worst deal you're ever going to get? If he says yes, then you bring in an Andy Dalton. Otherwise, find out whether or not Tanner Mordecai is eligible to be Brock Purdy's backup next year, and find it out in the next 3 weeks. And if you don't, you've so thoroughly pissed away the value of the next 3 weeks that, if you cannot get out of your own way, you got to stop complaining about how slow you're walking. So this is a big,
maybe a Brock Purdy, Andy Dalton, Tanner Mordecai room. I mean, I could see that too. I mean, especially if Dalton was willing, he's 37. If he'd be willing to take a little bit less, you have a legitimate backup quarterback who started in the NFL, not a backup, but a legitimate backup. And you have a young quarterback you like, or maybe you like a Riley Leonard. Maybe you like somebody in the draft. I just gave you 3 names that I kind of like in the draft. There's a lot of time between now and the draft to kind of figure it all out. But I mean, they just need to spend the last month figuring out, taking inventory on their roster, figuring out, of their backups, who they're interested in. And then they need to get some rest, and they need to get ready for the draft, and they need to hit. And they can't keep missing in the first round. I mean, it's just like, that's a big part of their reason why they're in this spot right now, is they keep missing in the first round. You can't miss 8 times out of 10 picks in the first round. And we all love John Lynch, but those are the facts. Those are the facts. They've missed 8 times out of 10. You can't hit 20% in the first round.
Unfortunately, 4 of those picks are all wrapped up into one transaction, right? Not only you missed on Lance the player, and then the 3 picks that you gave up to miss on Lance the player. So there's 4 of your picks right there.
3, I think, but
I mean, you're right. 3. Tim Kawakami is the guy who keeps on. Do we include Lance as the pick or not the pick? Do we count that or not? Gee, it's just,
yes, we count that.
We count.
I mean, those picks. You could have had Micah Parsons. We count that. So I mean, the 49ers, McGlinchey, Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, 3 picks on Trey Lance. Ricky Pearsall until proven otherwise. I mean, they haven't gotten anything out of their number ones except for Ayuk and Bosa, and that's a problem. That is a problem. That's part of the reason they're at where they're at. So it'll be interesting to see. But
let me tell you, Larry, if you really want to talk about now, I mean, now we're going. This is almost worthy of being brought up on Wednesday, because I know you got to get running down to Santa Clara here in a little bit. If you really are in the let's trade Brock Purdy business, you are saying out loud, we're sort of punting on the idea of competing next year, right? So there's no playoffs are now the X marks the spot of the 2025 49ers season if Brock Purdy were to be traded. And if you're going to go in that direction, well, then you find out what you can get for Nick Bosa too.
Well, I don't think that they're going to look at it that way. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to stay with Brock Purdy. But like, if they decided to move off of Brock Purdy for Sam Darnold,
thought exercise.
Yeah, but I mean, if they thought they were going to go and go get a Sam Darnold or somebody like that, they're going to think they're going to compete with Sam Darnold. They're not getting Sam Darnold to just hang around. They're going to think they can compete with him. I wouldn't do it because I don't like Sam Darnold that much, but Sam Darnold's had a pretty decent year. But I mean, once again, the people that are going to tell you can't pay Brock Purdy are going to tell you that do you realize in his last X number of games, he's done this, this, and this. But in reality, what's the story here? What is the story of the regression? Is the story of the regression a Brock Purdy story, or is the story of the regression Ayuk, Debo, and CMC last year accounted for 40 touchdowns, and this year account for 2. And next year, there's no guarantee that the Niners are going to have a healthy version of any of those 3 guys on their roster. It's like if you said to me, is Ayuk, Debo, and CMC more likely to be closer to 2023 in 2025 and their 40 touchdowns, or 2024 and their 2 touchdowns, I would say they're going to be way closer to 2024 in 2025. I'm not. Why? Because Ayuk's not going to play probably a good chunk of the year. Debo, I think, is done, and CMC has got tendonitis in 2 Achilles and is coming off a PCL injury, and who knows what his situation is going to be. So I would say they'd be lucky if they got 10 touchdowns out of Ayuk, Debo, and CMC in a year, and they had 40 last year. So they're going to have to rebuild the O-line, rebuild the D-line, figure out Brock's situation, figure out what you're going to do with Debo. And regardless, you also, even though people are like, they got to stop drafting receivers in the first round, that's probably true, but they also need to go probably add to their receiving core.
Well,
or they're not going to have a very good receiving core.
I think you got to bring in a new special teams coordinator. That's painfully obvious to me anyways. And I don't think Nick Sorensen should get a second bite at the apple. He didn't do much more to deserve it than Steve Wilkes did. Steve Wilkes had a better year than Nick Sorensen did, and Steve Wilkes had to get fired. I don't care if Nick was easier to talk to or work with for Kyle. He wasn't as good as Steve Wilkes was. Full stop. So I would move on from Brandon Staley, Nick Sorensen, Brian Schneider, and I'd use these next 3 weeks to figure out what 2025 could look like in terms of your own depth chart or not. By the way, so like and subscribe, everyone. Brought to you by Sam's Chowder House. It's great to have you here, as always, for Wake Up. Larry and I are going to be back Wednesday and Friday as well. We got 49ers and Dolphins. It's going to be San Francisco's first game back at Hard Rock Stadium since losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl there. First time since 2020. Got a couple of 6 and 8 teams. You're going to have the master versus apprentice storyline between the coaches. And again, hopefully the Niners lose that game. You don't want to win another game this year and improve your draft position if you don't do that. The NFC West, Larry, as it stands right now, the Rams have turned their 1-4 start. The Rams have turned their 1-4 start into first place here. Their final 3 games against the Jets, Cardinals, and Seahawks. So it'll be an interesting finish for the Rams. They're probably going to win the West. Seattle's now in second place at 8-6. They just got throttled by the Packers last night, and they got the Vikings coming up next. So good luck, Seattle, with that. Arizona in third place. Game with the Rams 2 weeks from now will probably decide the division. They close it out, the Cardinals do, with the Panthers, Rams, and 49ers. And again, the 49ers' best chance to have a game of consequence is if you've reached that final week of the year and Arizona has played itself. Maybe the 49ers can play spoiler to the Cardinals. That might be the last chance they have to affect how the postseason will look. So that's the West as it stands right now. The only other thing, and I know we got a lot of supers here to get to, Larry, and then you got to get running on a rainy day down in Santa Clara. I want to talk a little bit about mercy for DeAndre Campbell, because I saw that being a talking point. You know, some people are saying, aren't the Niners going a little overboard here on DeAndre Campbell? And the answer is no, they are not. You know, why don't you just cut him? Well, the reason why is because they want to suspend him. They want to reclaim some of his signing bonus. They don't want him being attached to a team that is going to go to the postseason. Not that I really think anyone would come for DeAndre Campbell based on how he's played and what he just did, but they want to prevent that from even being an option for him. This is a huge no. Fuck you from the 49ers to DeAndre Campbell. And DeAndre Campbell has earned every inch of that. He absolutely has. Look at all of the pissed off football players. They know more about this than Josina Anderson or any sympathetic ear who wants to hear what might have been DeAndre Campbell's problem. Let me ask you this. Does he have a dead child? Because if he doesn't, he walked off the field that a man was out there playing through did. That's the thing. How can you say, I don't want to play in the same game Javarius Ward is out there playing in? That's disgraceful and disgusting. And, someone's like, well, we need his side of the story. No, I don't need the side.
Who said that? Who said that?
Yeah, wouldn't. No, like I think Josina Anderson, somebody. But anyways, we don't need the side.
Why is she carrying everybody's water?
The guy who gets out of the foxhole when the bombs start to fall, never need that guy's story. I'm not interested in the story.
It's a classic example of a guy who chose himself over the team. That is the story. You want to know what the story is? That's the story. And you can take all of the, reporters that you want who, whatever their agenda is, who knows, but they're just making themselves look really, really bad. This guy chose himself over the team. He had plenty of opportunity to tell the team. And here's the thing, guys, there are guys in the NBA every single night who get called off the bench who are like, screw it, I don't want to go in. And the coach is like, all right, fine, we'll go to you. And nobody says anything about it. It happens all the time. But in football, there's a code, and there's only so many guys who can dress. And let's be completely honest about this. Campbell had an impact. His going AWOL had an impact on the game. Yep. D. Winters had a neck injury. Flanagan Fowles is hurt. Greenlaw was already taken out of the game. They had to stop the run in the fourth quarter. They couldn't stop Kyron Williams because they couldn't stop Kyron Williams. Well, guess what they needed? Probably more linebackers. Oh, but Campbell decided he wasn't going to play because his feelings were hurt.
Here's the deal.
Well,
he knew
guess what? You know what? He's now suspended. They suspended him today for 3 games. He's suspended for the remaining 3 games of the regular season. And I hope that walk back to the locker room was worth it, buddy, because it cost you $780,000 in salary and bonuses because you decided to be not a professional. And then now the Niners could have cut your ass, but then they would have had to pay you the rest of the year. But instead they said, you know what, we're going to screw this guy over. He screwed us over. We're going to screw him over. And they're working with the league to make sure that that they can recoup some of his salary on the cap. And he's going to lose almost $1 million. So I hope that was a great walk.
Turnabout is fair play. You're going to screw us over and leave us without options. We're going to do the exact same thing to you. And if you've read how the whole thing went down, apparently, third quarter, it is relayed upstairs, because John Lynch is sitting in the 49ers coordinator's booth. So he's right there, I'm guessing. And they're like, yeah, Dre Greenlaw is not going into the game. John Lynch hears that. He's like, what? Leaves the press box, hits the elevator, goes down to the field to get a firsthand account from DeAndre. Why aren't you going in tonight? And apparently, John Lynch flipped out. Like those who heard.
He should have.
What John Lynch said, there's this rumor that, what was his number? Red 47? That there's John Lynch and then there's Red 47. And Red 47 came out. And John Lynch is, as dignified face of the franchise, polite, kind gentleman as you will find. And he is also a linebacker who hit motherfuckers so hard, they're still feeling it. John Lynch on a football field was a murderer, savage of the first degree, out there trying to hurt motherfuckers. That's John Lynch at his core as a football player. So when he said, DeAndre, get out of here.
Well, Devondre made Lynch look bad. Then Lynch vouched for Devondre, so he's making Lynch look really, really bad. And also, Lynch is like, fuck that, fuck this guy. He wants to say fuck us. Well, fuck him. And you know what? Get him the fuck off our sideline right fucking now. And that's exactly how he felt about it, I'm sure. And good for John. I absolutely endorse that. And I loved some of the recounts from some of the players recounting that were like, man, John was savage.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about the hardest hitting safeties in football history, it's Ronnie Lott, John Lynch, Steve Atwater, and that's probably the list right
Chuck
there.
Cecil.
Chuck Cecil.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys. Fulcher.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Lynch is a freaking monster on the football field, and he's a great guy, but he was a killer, and you know what? I'm glad that he got in the face of De'Vondre Campbell.
Yep.
By the way, the Niners, Campbell was not their first choice. They wanted Eric Kendricks. All right, Eric Kendricks signed with the Niners, or agreed to the Niners, and then jumped to the Cowboys. And when he was asked about it, he said, I think I would have taken a more reserved role in San Francisco, whereas I feel I have a lot left to give. I wanted to be here and be a middle linebacker. I wanted to share my experience with the team, share my leadership abilities, and command that huddle. So I'm reading this off of Niners Nation. And it says in the article, it says that sounds like somebody who was told, hey, when Dre Greenlaw gets healthy, he's going to start. Otherwise, why wouldn't Kendricks come here? Because he's a proud guy who wanted to start. Well, that's who Campbell is. He's a proud guy who wanted to start. But come on, man, you knew the story. You were a space filler for Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw is a great player, a much greater player than you are. And he had to know this was coming. And to me, I was told that the 12 men on the field, back-to-back 12 men on the field penalties was an example of them calling Campbell off the field, only he would not come. So a lot of people blame Sorensen for back-to-back 12 men on the field penalties. It sounds like the guy who should have been blamed was Campbell, and everybody carried his water and covered for his ass.
Well, blame everybody. I don't think anybody gets to escape criticism on that. It's
there you go. I mean, they covered for him. But I mean, this is also, and I brought this up the other day. It's like, this is why it's really important that you hit in the draft. Because when you draft guys, it's like they're coming into, let's say, high school from grammar school, and they only know the rules of your high school. Where if you're signing guys as a free agent, you're signing guys who might be like sophomores or juniors, and they went to high school somewhere else, and maybe there's a different standard somewhere else, and now they got to learn your standard, and maybe a painful learning experience.
Right? You want to work with a fresh mold of clay or some used clay? You always choose the fresh clay.
And we've seen it. I mean, AJ Pierzynski was a good baseball player, but the Giants didn't know that he was kind of a unprofessional type attitude. They traded for him.
Everyone in Chicago, everyone knew that. Why the Giants didn't know that is comically inept. But
okay, yeah, all I will say is that you talk about Chicago. He went to Chicago and led maybe the greatest pitching staff we've ever seen in that 05 White Sox to a World Series, catching virtually every inning along the way. So, I don't know if AJ Pierzynski, was a fit for the Giants, but he sure as fuck was a fit for the White Sox, and they won the goddamn World Series. So I'm not saying that the Giants were right. I think the Giants were wrong. But like Kelly Oubre came to the Warriors. Kelly Oubre didn't fit the Warriors. Yeah, he did. But I mean, Kelly Oubre didn't fit the Warriors culture, even though he's a good player. AJ Pierzynski didn't fit the Giants culture, even though he went on and won the World Series the next year with the White Sox. And De'Vondre Campbell just didn't fit the Niners culture. And this is why it's really important that you don't have to lean on these free agents, because they get groomed in somebody else's room with somebody else's rules. They don't take your rules that seriously. They think they can live by their own rules. I mean, De'Vondre Campbell, I've been at every practice this year. De'Vondre Campbell has been late to practice every day. Now, I asked about it because I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this guy jogging out to practice in the middle of practice every goddamn day? And I was told, well, he's got to warm up on the bike. So he's got his own like little thing where he warms up on the bike and skips the early stretching with the rest of the linebackers and then runs out there in the middle of practice.
I don't know. Tell you what would you say you do here, head coach? Like, this is where Kyle needs to step up and not care that Brandon, that we got a quarter or a wide receiver wearing the wrong color shorts today. That doesn't matter. But if this guy needs 20 minutes on the bike before practice, guess who's got to get to the building 20 minutes earlier then? Because when the team goes out on practice, you're with them. That's how we do it over here. The fact that Kyle has just allowed that to happen is a demerit on Kyle as well.
Well, that is an argument. Damon, you're bringing up another argument, which is some people feel at the core that Kyle is too player friendly, that he's too close to the players, that he's got too good of a relationship with Debo, that he's got too tight of a relationship with some of these players. Now, the players love him. I will say that. And people who are, the one thing I laugh the most at are the people who never go in the room, who are like, the team's about to commit a mutiny.
Kyle's lost the room.
No, they're not.
He's lost the room.
He's not lost the room. I'm in the room. I'm talking to these guys on the record, off the record. I got all kinds of guys who say all kinds of things to me off the record. If they hated Kyle, somebody would have said something or shown something, and they don't. They don't hate Kyle. So it's a totally made up narrative.
Kyle makes guys better, and better football players make more money. Kyle got Debo Samuel $28 million a year. The worst 49er wide receiver looks at that and goes, maybe someday that could be me too. So there's a lot of respect for Kyle. But maybe there is a back off Kyle. Like you can't let players do their own thing. You just can't. You can't. Don't worry about Brandon Ayuk shorts and not the guy who's on a bike missing the first 20 minutes of team activity. That sounds a little nuts to me.
Well, and also, it really comes down to just draft better. Because if you drafted better, guess what? You don't need Eric Kendricks at 33. You don't need washed up DeAndre Campbell. You should draft better. And that's just bottom line. I mean, they've that's really it. This is a good one too from Dees. He said, I wish someone had a video of John Lynch ripping Campbell on the sideline. Anyone got a video of it?
Yeah. How is that?
I don't.
The social media. I'm surprised somebody, wasn't trained on that conversation. I mean, there's always somebody filming an NFL sideline. It's amazing. We got no evidence of that, but
I bet you there's some copy of something somewhere. I just don't know who to go to get it. All right, let's hit the star chats.
Let's do it.
Real OBJ CDT says answer Hurts deal. Eagles still paid others. Yeah, I mean, Hurts got paid $55 million. It's an awful lot of money, but guess what? You can't argue that if you pay your quarterback $55 million, there's no way they can compete because the Eagles have a loaded roster and they're paying their quarterback $55 million.
You see that Sirianni went to talk to one of his defensive players and the defensive line coach wouldn't even let Sirianni talk to the player on the sideline?
Well, it's funny you say that because 2 weeks ago he was holding court in the locker room, like just the way all head coaches do. Hey guys, we're going to rest up and good win and, game ball to this guy and that guy. And like when Kyle's doing that, generally everybody's up and like focused on him.
Attention.
And they're in the room. Like Sirianni was doing this, and you could see guys like in corners of the locker room at their locker, and they're still kind of taking off their stuff. They're not even paying any attention to him. So I kind of wonder how much he really commands the room. But let's be honest,
the Eagles might be in the Super Bowl with the most dysfunctional locker room in football. They
got Vic Fangio. They brought in Vic Fangio, and look at the difference. It's made a big difference. Tangy says Tangy, he says if Purdy came out and said he was open to taking less than top of the market or wasn't looking to reset the market, he'd get a call from the union rep.
First of all, Purdy hasn't said anything. His agent is the one talking to media people. Purdy hasn't said a word.
And he's not going to. He's not going to. But Tangy is right. The guys who are at the top reset the market. Those kinds of guys, the union takes a lot of interest in that because they're trying to set new records every offseason. That's their game. That's what they're trying to get done. D. Martinez 949 says, I think it will come out that his shoulder injury was a lot worse than was reported. He hasn't looked the same. I agree. In fact, it's one of the questions I'm going to ask Kyle today is Brock's deep ball is hanging. He was 1 of 8 on deep balls with a pick. I'm going to ask Kyle if he thinks that, one, why is it hanging? Do you agree with that? And also, is he 100%? And the turnover came on a 2nd and 11 play. How do you coach Brock to hit the check down a little bit more regularly?
Well, look, the 49ers have been less than on the surface accurate when it comes to reporting their injuries. So yeah, there might be something in that shoulder, but we know that they absolutely masked the original, Christian McCaffrey injury. They failed to report a broken ankle of Fred Warner for several weeks in a row and should be fined millions of dollars or have to pay my gambling debts. One of the two will satisfy me. So, yeah, maybe the Niners are covering this up too. They've been less than forthright about their injury status all year.
By the way, I'm looking at the number of people watching the show, and it gives you the full breakdown. We have one emoji. Somebody put a wow emoji. So there you go. We have one emoji.
What does that even mean? Like, I notice sometimes there's a thumbs up or an emoji somewhere. How does that even?
I don't know.
I don't know. There's still a lot about YouTube. I don't understand.
It's a mystery. Alex Conklin says, Larry, who are Purdy's weapons? You got Kittle and Jennings and Pearsall with a hole in his chest. Purdy is the highest rated quarterback through 25 starts. In most games, he's got a 120. He's got the most games with a 120, 130 rating, more than Lamar, more than Wilson. There's no question. It's funny. Last year, people had no problem pointing out that Purdy had these awesome weapons. So last year, it's hilarious how this is. Last year, Brock Purdy was a product of his weapons. But this year, when his three top weapons go from 40 touchdowns to 2 touchdowns, now it's all Brock sucks and Brock's mid and Brock's regressed. It's not that Ayuk sucks or Debo sucks or CMC sucks or they've regressed or they're hurt or they're not producing. It's all suddenly Brock's mid. Something tells me if he still had those weapons scoring 40 touchdowns, they probably would be a whole lot better.
Larry, he went from leading the NFL in yards per attempt last season with yak yards being the price of business with the 49ers, right? They led the NFL in yak yards for years. This year, it's so thoroughly bottomed out. And Purdy, this morning, has the 4th highest yards per attempt in the NFL. He was number 1 until this disastrous game against the Rams. And he fell down to 4 with the production this week and his lack of production on Thursday night. So, again, it's everyone makes Purdy good. It's got nothing to do with him. And then this year, when no one's good around him, Purdy's still 4th in the league in yards per attempt. So he's a little bit better than his harshest critics want to admit.
Yeah. No, I mean, just once again, it's like the same people that are screaming, you cannot pay him, on their timeline, they have, unless they've deleted, they have things that say that this guy's really good. This guy's really special. And now they're like, oh, you cannot pay this guy. Really? Because you're the one who told us he was really special. And if you don't believe me, go check your own timeline. Wonder Boy says, it just feels like Lynch is trying to save face by going after Campbell's money post-quitting. Larry was spot on when saying that the front office protects their guys rather than playing the best option, sour grapes. I don't know if he's saving face. I just think you got to remember who John Lynch is. He's an agent for the organization. And that money, while even though, Jed's not going to miss meals or anything, his job is to defend the 49ers' interests, and that includes their money interests.
Well, and as a Hall of Fame player, his job is also to defend the integrity of the game, and DeAndre Campbell pissed all over it.
Right.
This is not only is this business for John Lynch, this is personal as well, clearly.
And he's not protecting anybody. He's just protecting the Niners' interest money-wise and also trying to stick it to Campbell. I mean, what the Niners don't want is they don't want a bad situation, a bad precedent, a guy quitting to result in that player getting game checks they didn't deserve and opportunities on playoff teams that they didn't deserve. I think that there's enough of a code around the game that people would just say, hey, the guy quit. We don't want him. We don't want quitters. And I think he's never going to play again in the NFL. But I think the Niners just want to make sure that it's painful for Campbell. And they don't want him getting $1 million to do nothing.
It's about setting precedent. The last thing they want to do is some guy who quit on them be able to go into an advantageous situation and end this year on a good note. So
Ryan Kaler says, why constant focus on the AAV when the percentage of cap and guaranteed money are way more relevant metrics and a better way to compare to quarterback contracts signed in prior years? All right.
Yeah,
Right?
well, because I agree with that, by the way. I wouldn't be interested in annual average value. Guaranteed dollars is where I would begin and end every conversation about my pay in the NFL if I were a quarterback or a guard.
It all matters to these agents. Believe me, it all
it's
matters.
agent.
I mean, they take exception to everything.
It's agent dick measuring for sure.
Ryan Alloy says liability and inclement weather leaves elite weapons around him in order to succeed. Let's pay him $65 million. Cowboy West, love the show.
Thank you.
Liability and inclement weather leaves elite weaponry around him.
You going to put that up, or are you just going to read it to yourself?
Oh no, I wasn't sure. I thought I put it up. I wasn't. What's he saying here? Liability and
inclement weather leaves elite weaponry around him in order to succeed. Let's pay him $65 million. You're going to be the Cowboys West, is what it basically that is.
I got you.
That's sarcasm. Going to pay him all that much? You're Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
Yeah. Well, the Cowboys have not won for sure, and they are paying Dak a ton.
But look at it this way: Dak hasn't even been to the NFC title game. Brock has.
I think isn't Brock 3-0 against Dak?
I think so.
Yeah. Fuji Simeon 13. It's sad 49er season's all but over. Love the show. Looking forward to listening to you guys talk about the Warriors, Giants, and the Valkyries, I guess. But
we
I'm excited also your upcoming home appliance segment. Haha. Yeah,
Larry,
well, we haven't gotten the oven in yet, but we're still.
I want you to put umlauts over the effort. O in your new oven. I'm going to be using umlauts on every O going forward now that Dennis Schroeder is a part of the Golden State Warriors. Umlauts are back, baby. I might go pick up a bottle of Lowenbrow. I'm so excited about the umlauts.
And Fuji Simeon, you're going to have to tell me about the Valkyries. Though no chance I'll be watching that. Real OBJ says, is Purdy bad against man, or is it a coupled problem when the O-line is subpar in pass protection and wide receivers can't beat man? Try Purdy in the Lions offense. I think it has a lot to do with Brock Purdy can find the open receiver. I think the Niner receivers struggled. There's an old saying. If you match up, you play man. If you don't, you play zone. If you have the better players, you want man to man. If you don't have the better players, you want zone. Now there's differences for the quarterback. The quarterback usually in a zone will a quarterback who throws with anticipation and leads the receivers into the void in the zone is usually a good passer against zone. But Brock Purdy can hit an open guy, whether it's against a zone defense or a man defense. I just think that what you have is the Niners wide receiver core has no speed, so nobody's worried about any deep threat. So they don't really defend the deep ball. So that's that. When you don't have to defend the deep ball, now you can have more defenders in the box. You have more defenders closer to the line of scrimmage. There's less room to operate underneath. So what the 49ers really need, they need to go figure out who's healthy, who's not from their wide receiver core. There's also 3 speed receivers in the free agent market. Tutu Atwell, McCole Hardman, Darius Slayton. There might even be a 4th one there. Oh, Rondale Moore. All these guys are really fast. And Elijah Moore. There's like 4 or 5 of them that all run really, really well. They need to get a fast receiver and add it to this mix and figure out which of their receivers they can depend on.
Jacob Cowing.
But you probably don't need to. It's not a great use Jacob Cowing, but it's not a great wide receiver draft this year, I don't think. I mean, you have Luther Burden, you got a couple guys, but other than that, I don't love the wide receiver draft at all. So I think it's a year that you hit it.
He's probably going to be there. Again, I'm biased, right? Elijah Surratt out of Indiana. His nickname all season long has been Waffle House because he's always open. Check out Elijah Surratt.
I know he's on my list. Believe me, I really only like about 5 or 6 wide receivers. He's one of them.
Good.
He's really good. Indiana's got a stacked front. I also love Mikhail Kamara. Real OBJ says
Mikhail Kamara. We're 6'4", Larry. He's a top 10 pick. He's 6'1", so he's probably day 2, day 3.
Right, but here's the thing: if 6'1" meant you couldn't make an impact, then I wouldn't want him. But to me, I like him more as a 6'1" player because there's value there. He's probably going to be a mid to late day 3 pick. You're going to get one of the Big Ten's best edge rushers just because he's 6'1" and change. It didn't, 6'1" and change didn't bother Hugh Douglas. 6'1" and change didn't bother a number of guys. I mean, you got to be an athlete, and that guy's a big-time player.
By the way, if I can just interject real quick from Never Daunted Radio Network, go Hoosiers. Yes, Surratt. There we go. Okay, Larry, get back to the Supers.
Not a correct spelling, but yes, Surratt. Real OBJ says, is Purdy bad? Okay, we got that one. Nicholas says, 49ers aren't paying Purdy for what he did last year. The 49ers are going to be paying Purdy the market rate, period, or he's not going to be here. Fuji Simeon, to be honest, if I was a player, I'm more interested in most guaranteed money rather than total value or AAV. I understand an ego and pride, but go for the guarantee. Absolutely. I mean, the players, if you're talking about what the players care about, they care about total guarantees. That's what it's about. The rest of it's just for the agent to jerk himself. I mean, to be completely honest. Prapa says, if all your rivals are begging you to pay Purdy, that says a lot. It's a dumb move when you can let him play another year and evaluate him. You know what? The only thing is, Prapa, these things that you can do that you can't do. It's like you just threw one out. That is the equivalent of the people that were saying, hey, man, you don't need to mess with Ayuk. Just have him play on the 5th-year option. But he never did. And they never did. Why? Because you can't just dictate to your players. You're going to have unhappy players. And I don't know that you're going to be able to get away with playing super hardball with your quarterback in a contract year. I don't see that. I see them either getting a deal done or Kyle Strongton, the agent for Purdy, demanding a trade. He's not going to stay. He's not going to play another year.
Here's the thing. Brock has already given at the office when it comes to value for you, the franchise. Brock has checked that box more emphatically than any Niner who's ever dressed on a game day in the franchise's 78-year history.
He doesn't owe you that.
Yeah, he doesn't owe anyone anything anymore. They owe him.
No, they owe him. L. Kurtz says Kyle will probably draft a running back first and a kicker second.
Good God.
As long as that running back's name's Ashton Gianti, I'd be okay. Fuji Simeon says Cam, Keyshawn, and even Matt Burns tore Josina Anderson's defense of Campbell. She sort of walked back her defense as she was not aware of the Ward tragedy.
Well, then that's bad.
She's not aware of the Ward tragedy. She's a fucking NFL media person. He's an NFL player. She absolutely was aware of the Ward tragedy.
And if not,
is a fucking lie.
I would say this, though. This is how bad media has become. They did a good, 30-second close-up talking about Trent Williams, and that dude was not Trent Williams.
I know. That was ridiculous.
I mean, this is...
Did you see Copeland? Did you see what Copeland did?
All the adults in the room have been replaced by 27-year-old good luck with that.
Did you see what Copeland did? He put a picture of himself, and he's like, had one of the CamBR guys put the Trent Williams thing underneath him, like he was Trent Williams, like they were mistaking him for Trent Williams.
Oh.
Cracked me up. Yeah, and not only those guys, not just Cam. Dante Whitner also took Josina Anderson out back. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, Josina has a history of making absurd excuses for players' mistakes, bad behavior, i.e. Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph helmet fight.
You know what?
Campbell.
Here's what happened to Josina.
You can be too close. You can be too close.
Josina wants access to players, and so she just kisses eternal ass. What she didn't realize was that the soft-handed ass-kissing of DeAndre Campbell would piss off more guys that she's covering than trying to cover for him. So she didn't read the room well at all.
Yeah. Fuji Simeon says Josina messed up so bad her Fox Sports colleagues ripped her excuse for Campbell. Even Bayless didn't defend her. You know, it's bad when Skip doesn't agree.
Skip isn't in that box anymore, though. Come on.
The same way you got to think before you rip somebody, you got to think before you defend somebody. Eric Darby says, do the Niners re-sign Dre next year?
Yes.
They fucking better. That would be my official answer. Fuji Simeon says,
did he look like a diminished or less than player in our first impression of him back out on the field? And the answer is not at all. He was among the Niners' best players in his first game back from catastrophic injury. I would tell him right now, I know you're just chomping at the bit to go out there and play as much football as possible. We do not want to run your engine in the red while you're this fresh off a massive injury. There's nothing in the next 3 weeks that will be better for your Achilles than 6 more months of rest and rehab and recovery. So I would have him on a huge, huge pitch count in these final 3 weeks. And tell him
my favorite player on the team.
You're back.
Favorite player on the team.
I saw a video.
I would never wear a jersey, but if I did, I'd wear a 57.
I saw a video that his wife posted, I think, to Instagram of just, him puttering around the house on his recovery trike, playing in the backyard with his kids while he is, incapacitated on one leg with this injury, and all the battling back, and the, now he's walking in the boot. Now he can stand up and play in the pool with the kids a little bit. Now he's strong enough to have a kid on his shoulders as he's walking in the boot. It was just awesome to see how this guy had a smile on his face as he's battling back from, just as devastating an injury as you can have, right? Outside of Kevin Durant blowing an Achilles in the NBA final, blowing out an Achilles in a Super Bowl, that's terrible. And
what a guy, though. The guy's an incredible guy, dude.
On the field,
I don't wear Niners jerseys. I don't wear Niners gear, but I did. My man Raj had a guy who was putting together T-shirts and Lolita Productions, I think it was, or Lolita merch, I forget. And the guy sent me a Dre Greenlaw shirt that Raj wore on one of our live streams, and it's just a picture of Greenlaw. But I don't wear gear, but man, I'm a big Greenlaw guy. He is the man. Fuji Simeon.
I've only got one Niner jersey to my name. Would you like to guess who it is?
Joe Montana?
No.
Steve Young.
Patrick Willis.
Okay, that's good. If I could wear, to me, there's only 2 jerseys I would ever wear: 87 for Dwight and 57 for Greenlaw. And 57 is such a great number too. Fuji Simeon says, imagine prime John Lynch playing on the 49er defense. Oh, we wish. Could you imagine that?
Kurtz, you don't have to imagine it. You had it. His name was Ronnie Lott.
I know. John Lynch was amazing, though. L. Kurtz, I want to see Brock with the Eagles O-line and wide receivers. Exactly. Let me see Brock behind a big fortress of a line with some great receivers.
Yeah,
I always wanted really good.
I always wanted to see Barry Sanders behind that Cowboys offensive line. You would have run for 3,000 yards.
Fuji Simeon says, I missed one of his about Brock's agent. Wait, let me double check that. I'm sorry if I did, Fuji.
Sorry, Fuji, you so give it the office, brother. If we missed one, we just thank you to infinity. I don't think there's any singular bigger contributor to Super Chats than Fuji Simeon.
No, and I hate to even. I thought I have that here. Let me see. Let me check though, Fuji, because you are worthy of checking. Here it is. Brock's agent is ecstatic. Who would have thought his last pick of the draft client is eligible to sign for at least $120 million contract? Agent happy? Yeah. You think his agent's feeling good?
It's like, dude, he's like a guy who got in on Bitcoin when it was at $800.
So then Fuji gave us $4.99 and then came back with this one to say we forgot his. So now it's like he's given twies.
$2.
Eric Darby,
you screwed it up.
Do the Niners sign Dre this offseason? Yes, they do. Did we just get that one? Oh,
yes. I would be working on extensions for Dre Greenlaw and George Kittle tonight.
That is going to do it for us. What do you got cooking at 11, Damon?
So we're going to talk about this end game and the right way for the 49ers to wrap up this week. We'll come back and talk a little bit about Dennis Schroeder, what he could be bringing to the Warriors, and how last night, you had Luka was just incredible. But that game is just hard to watch. The teams hit a combined 47 threes, and I don't want to watch 47 of anything in a singular sporting event. I don't want to watch 47 of anything. That's too much. There's too many threes, and the NBA is wondering, why are our ratings down? Well, because your entire game has turned into, kickouts for threes that aren't dunks or maybe dunks, and the shot creation and artistry of the NBA are at a terrible spot right now because everyone's just jacking too many threes at all times. Like the way the home run was over bastardized and became something that baseball had, like everyone liked home runs. And then you saw too many of them. And then baseball, we lost interest. Another home run, big fucking deal. And that's another three. Who cares? The game is harder to watch now, and you just wait. The NBA's ratings, if they're in trouble now, wait until LeBron retires. Wait until Steph Curry retires. That's when the NBA is going to be in holy shit ratings hell. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. We're going to talk about the weekend that Josh Allen just had, one over the other. We'll talk about some Bills fans in upstate New York. So it's going to be a fun show coming up at 11, and it's going to be a good week all week long here on the channel, unless I got a sick kid at home, which could be happening. I'm kind of monitoring my phone to see if we're going to hear about Ozzy's coughing at school today. We sent him to school with a little bit of a cough. We don't know. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes, John. But it's going to be a good, fun week. Mom's coming to town. The Duchess is flying in. It's almost
nice.
Christmas. Here we go, Larry. Christmas
you got
time.
The tree. Do you have the tree up?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. First weekend of the Guardsman tree lot. Oh, if I might.
So we were going to go to our regular tree lot. Well, first of all, my wife was going to say, she's like, let's go to Costco. Do you get it at Costco? But then we went, we were busy that last weekend. We went this weekend, no more trees at Costco. Costco's out of trees. Costco's like, yeah, that was the last weekend thing. That's not this weekend. So now I had to go back to the lot, paid way too much, but whatever. Doesn't matter.
Well, the next time you want to pay a little bit too much for a tree and have that money do really good, come on down to the Guardsman Tree Lot, Fort Mason Festival Pavilion. It will be open, I believe, until Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. My show, by the way, tomorrow is going to be coming to you from the Guardsman Tree Lot. I'm going to be doing Tuesday's show from down there. So great place to pick up not only a tree, but wreaths, garland, and of course, every single tree sends a kid to summer camp. That's what we do. So
nice. Very nice. That's very cool. By the way, Eric Darby says, LOL, I think I sent mine twice. Cup of coffee.
Thank you,
Eric. We appreciate you, brother. That does it for us today. I'm back with you tonight at 6 p.m. on KMBR's YouTube only tonight for Niners Nightly. John Lund is going to stream with me after the Monday night game. I'm off to Santa Clara, where the Niners will have practice at 1:30 and then an open locker room around 2:45. So catch me later today. And then we got a full week. Damon and I are back with you on Wednesday. We're back with you on Friday. We got a lot going on this week. Leading
very rainy out there. So if you're driving down to Sam's Chowder House, it's the wrong day to put the top down on the Miata. It's careful conditions, everybody. We had a tornado warning in Northern California. Tornado warning? I've never even heard of such a thing. So be careful out there. Stay dry. Top up. And thanks for watching. An angel take themselves lightly and fly. And there you go.
Ralph, I'm not a guy that would ever be caught dead in a Miata. What can I say? It's kind of like a scooter. It's you don't mind owning one. You just want to be caught dead. Anybody catch you riding in it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm too tough of a guy, Trent Baalke here. I'm too tough a guy to ride in a Miata. All right, I'll tell you that. But I will say this, go Niners. You know what? You win some, you lose some. I told Coach that. I'm just trying to convince Shad Khan not to fire my ass.